Batman, the Dark Knight, the Caped Crusader. There are many names for Bruce Wayne's alter ego. And for all those nicknames, there is an equally amazing story that have been written over the last 30 years. From The Dark Knight Returns to The Long Halloween and Batman Year One, the list could go on and on. Critically acclaimed, ones that are loved by the fans and readers of The Dark Knight. There are just so many iconic stories throughout Batman's history. But today we're going to be talking about a more recent, a more contemporary piece written by James Tynion, art by Jorge Jimenez, and the amazing color by Bengal. Today we are talking about Batman, Fear State. I'm Alex. I collect comics and graphic novels. Welcome to the Graphic Novel Collector. Before we talk about this trade paperback, I do want to mention, right after I finished this book, I wanted to make a video about it almost immediately. However, I wanted to hold off on looking at the reviews because although this trade paperback just came out in 2023, the story is originally from, again, James Tynion's run in 2021. And the reason I wanted to hold off on all the reviews and looking at reviews, I didn't want it to change my perception, good or bad, on what I had just read. I wanted to get my thoughts down on paper and write this script without any biases. But because I really thought that, well, maybe I should look at the reviews at the time so that I have some context to what I'm going to be talking about. Because again, I'm coming back to comics, I'm coming back to graphic novels very recently, and I didn't read these in the single issues. So looking at this book alone, I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was an updated, fresh take, a new story. Overall, I think it was a great book. Spoiler alert for the whole video, I guess. But taking a look at some of the reviews posted from the single issues that came out at the time, we had a very polarizing reviews. People absolutely either loathed this book or they absolutely loved this book. And for the folks that hated this book, most of the reviews that I saw, actually pretty much unanimously, there were two reasons why people hated this story. One was because of all of the DC tie-ins that were happening at the time, all the crossovers and things of that nature. And is that this book's fault necessarily? No. So I think if you're able to step back and look at this book as its own piece of work, and not just through the lens of a reader that was reading it back in 2021, you can appreciate this book for what it is. However, the other one that I saw, and this one I actually do agree with to an extent, is the over-expanding amount of characters in this book. There are a ton of subplots in this book and just a metric ton full of characters throughout this 6-series book, and it can be quite a lot, if I'm being honest. Again, I'm not here to look at the tie-in books and all the other pieces of this story. I am just looking at the 6 issues that James Tynion and Jorge Jimenez worked on. So with that being said, let's jump into the first part of this video, the plot. The main villains of this series are, without a doubt, Jonathan Crane, aka Scarecrow, and an overarching villain of Simon Saint, who is basically a billionaire that uses his billionaire influence to influence the politics within Gotham. And Mr. Saint, in this scenario, has enacted his company to overtake basically what Batman's job is to do. And he gets a man by the name of Sean Mahoney, a.k.a. Peacemaker #1, to police the streets of Gotham. He also has a ton of robot police officers that are there to stop crime, basically making it to where Batman is no longer necessary. And he is spreading lies and all sorts of misinformation. One thing I do really love about Tynion's writing in this book series is that it has a lot of influences from outside in the real world. I love when comics bring in real world things, and a lot of what I just talked about with mega corporations buying politicians might eerily remind you of what's going on in today's United States landscape. That's just one little wrinkle of this story. Simon Saint, though, the overarching bad guy, Scarecrow, is doing his own thing. He's created a brand new fear toxin that can not only make you just hallucinate and see your worst fears come true. Batman believes that this new fear toxin can somehow take control of the affected person's mind. And Batman is dead set on figuring out Scarecrow's plan. From here, though, we need to talk about the second part of this video, the overabundance of characters. All right, so getting to the characters in this book, and like I said, there are a ton of them, and that was a huge criticism of the book when it came out, but I believe if you can follow along with all the characters and all the subplots, honestly, it makes for a better overall story. But let's talk about it. Obviously, first up, Batman, and this is definitely a story where he needs the supporting characters to get to the end goal, which is, of course, stopping Scarecrow and stopping Mr. Saint. But this is definitely his story. He goes through a whirlwind of trials and tribulations, ultimately for the better of the character. Next up, we have Ghostmaker, and what's a Batman story without a Bat family that helps him out? And here, Ghostmaker is alongside him, and frankly, Ghostmaker was a character I had never even seen or heard of before I opened the pages of this book. Obviously, he's on the cover, so I saw him, and he was one of the reasons, don't judge a book by its cover, but this cover is absolutely brilliant, and Ghostmaker, I didn't know that's his name at the time when I saw the cover of the book. I was like, dang, that is a slick design. As I opened it up and I saw the amazing, badass design of this character, he's awesome. And because I love this book so much and I love the character Ghostmaker so much, I actually went out to my local shop and picked up 2 copies of Batman 102, which is the first appearance of Ghostmaker. I got the variant cover and the regular cover, and holy smokes, I'm just so stoked. Anyway, Ghostmaker is awesome. I immediately was drawn to this character, and he's just a badass character. There's no other way. He's got 2 katanas that he uses to slice and dice, but in the story, he goes down to Eden, which is Poison Ivy's realm. We'll get to that in a second, but he goes down there, and he helps fight off Simon Saint's robot army as they try and infiltrate her paradise garden of Eden. He has another part in the story where he helps connect Batman to a mind control device that is a part of the Unsanity Collective, and he really is a very big role within the pages of this book, and Ghostmaker is just a badass character, like I said. Next up, we have Miracle Molly. This is another character I had never heard of before reading this book, but again, she is on the cover right there, and such amazing colors, again by Bengal, such a just bright and vibrant, very, very awesome colors in this book. She plays the role of the anti-healer, and at the end of the arc, at the end of this story, it is her who ends up saving the day and helps Batman figure out what the heck is going on in this story. But without giving up too many spoilers, she helps figure out that there is a fear bomb, and that's ultimately Scarecrow's big plan. Next up, we have the Unsanity Collective, which is a mysterious transhumanist gang, and they fled to Poison Ivy's underground realm paradise. Yes, the city of Eden, which is what Queen Ivy calls it, which is a hidden paradise city underneath the tunnels and sewer systems of Gotham that we've really never seen before, and this was an awesome part, and I appreciate that Tynion kind of wove this in. We also have Harley Quinn, who basically in this book acts as Queen Ivy's right-hand woman. Harley is ultimately the person who convinces Ivy to not implode the entire city. Additionally, there are several other characters: Breaker, Gardner, Master Wise, Seer, and an almost incapacitated Squeak. These are all members of the Insanity Collective. They don't have too much screen time, and they're kind of background characters. Each of them play their little part, but again, only in a few panels, and I'm not really going to delve into who they are as characters too much, but just know there are a ton of quote-unquote good guys in this story. Moving on to the villains, of course, we have Scarecrow. Scarecrow is the big bad, the overarching supervillain, the comic book supervillain in this entire book. He is trying to detonate a fear bomb, we learn, and he's doing that by trying to use the Uncollective's mind control technology. We also have Simon Saint. Again, I've kind of explained who he is. In my opinion, though, he is one of the most scary characters in this entire book because he is the most true-to-life character. A billionaire tech mogul who's a CEO of Saint Industries. He's using his money to gain power within Gotham's political scene. He's really trying to get his robots to become the new police corps. He's trying to get Peacekeeper #1 to replace Batman, and this is just the most terrifying part of this book. James Tynion is great in this book and just in general at creating stories that not only reflect real life, but create some real tension and anxiety within the reader, because this is something that we are starting to see potentially in the real world. So Simon Saint, absolutely just a terrifying character because of how close to home it hits. He has Peacekeeper #1, who is seemingly a decent person, and he has Peacekeeper X. Man, Peacekeeper X is basically his bodyguard. But moving on, let's talk about Peacekeeper #1, aka Sean Mahoney, is seemingly a good man who wants to protect the city of Gotham. However, in the end, he is just a pawn for Simon Saint. And unfortunately, as he's dealing with the fear toxin, he murders several Gothamites because, again, he's infected with that fear toxin. Simon Saint decides that he is a liability and sends Peacekeeper X on a mission to bring him in. There's some amazing battles between Batman and him, and Batman and Peacekeeper X. It's all happening back to back to back. There are several pages. I think it's the 3rd issue where you just get some brilliant panels and brilliant art by Jorge Jimenez and Bengal, and holy smokes, it's just amazing. Next up, though, we have Peacekeeper X, aka Ricardo Huertas, and Peacekeeper X is essentially Simon Saint's personal assistant, bodyguard. He just gets stuff done, and he does his dirty work. He gets into some epic fights, as I said, with Peacekeeper #1 and Batman, and there's an awesome panel in the book where Peacekeeper X is trying to stab down at Batman, and it almost catches him. It almost catches him in that spot, and his face, Batman's face in the panel is hilarious. I love the way that Jimenez draws that panel, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's like exactly the face that I would make if that were me in that position. So just an excellent, excellent panel. But as you can tell by the huge host of characters, whether they be villains or heroes, there's a ton of subplots going on, being woven throughout the story, and I completely understand where some people kind of get lost. In my opinion, if you can keep everything straight, which I could, you can definitely enjoy this book. At the end of the day, I believe the story that Tynion has crafted in the pages of Fear State has a ton of weight and is somewhat grounded in reality because Simon Saint wants to take over via his money, power, and influence. And the art by Jorge Jimenez is just absolutely amazing. Jimenez knows how to draw badass scenes excellent fight scenes, and overall just great character design. And of course, Bengal's art is excellent. It's dynamic. There are amazing contrasts. There are some colors I've never seen in a Batman title inside the pages of this book. I truly believe that if you were to give a new comic book reader a book that is set in current day Gotham, this is the book you'd want to give them. It's not the same old rogues gallery. It's not the same old Bat family, even though the Bat family does show up and they do end up apprehending a certain villain. It's not the same people that we see in all the other Bat stories. I don't want to completely spoil the story, so I'll just say read the book. It's absolutely a great read, in my opinion. And the ending does wrap up quite nicely. There are some great character arcs in this book. And honestly, maybe the biggest reason I enjoyed this book is because I got introduced to a host of brand new characters. Ghostmaker is one of the coolest designed characters, not only in a Batman book, but in comics in general. Just a badass looking outfit. Dual wielding swords. It's awesome. Miracle Molly is a awesome character as well. She seems like she's got some pretty good depth to her, and it just makes me want to go out and read more stories about Ghostmaker and Miracle Molly. I already picked up, as I said, 2 copies of Batman 102, which was the first appearance of Ghostmaker. I want to go out and find a copy of Batman 108, which is the first appearance of Miracle Molly. That's how much this book has influenced me. I love the characters in this book. But yeah, that's my take. That's my video essay on Batman Fear State by Tynion, Jorge Jimenez, and Bengal on colors. It was really fun making this video. If you do enjoy it, if you want to hear more essays about comic books, graphic novels, make sure you like the video. Let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on Batman Fear State? Am I overhyping it just because I got to see a few new characters? Or am I spot on? Is this an awesome book that every Batman fan should put into their collection? I believe so. I think you should go out right now to your local comic book shop and pick up a copy of this trade paperback. It is that good. But I thank you all, everybody. I'm Alex. I collect comics and graphic novels. This is the Graphic Novel Collector. Make sure, again, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you all in the next one. Adios.